Today we have on special guest Professor Itay Fainmesser, PhD. He has a PhD in business economics from Harvard University. His work has been published in top economics and management journals such as the Review of Economic Studies, Management Science, and the Journal of Economic Theory. He is currently a business professor at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School.
Our goal is to gamify the podcast experience for our listeners. We accomplish this by creating a virtual world for Professor Fainmesser that listeners can enter and learn more about Professor Fainmesser through a first-person game format. Listeners can also earn money while being in our guest virtual world and get huge discounts on business services, clothing, and much more. Explore the open-world virtual city of our guest and enjoy virtual concerts, shopping mall, games, and a great fun experience. Play multiplayer games where you can earn discounts and money to use toward business or sell in our open marketplace. We hope you enjoy the experience.
Are you tired of developers and consulting firms taking advantage of your lack of technology knowledge? Narrow Lending is here to help with your software, mobile app, IT security, and game development needs. Give us a call at 888-503-8298. Get $500 in free advertising and professional advertising help when advertising today in our business virtual world and our virtual world affiliates. See how advertisers are getting a 200% return on investment on their advertising spend. Give us a call at 888-503-8298.
Have your own virtual business world, backend software, and mobile app for free where you can offer advertising, business services such as a website builder, accounting software, email marketing, and much more. Offer games, virtual concerts, virtual shopping mall, arcade with over 20 games, and live events in your own virtual world exclusively created by Narrow Lending. If you are interested, email us at info@narrowlendinginc.com.
How did you get into teaching?
Oh, that's a fun question. My belief is that there is a strong connection between teaching and learning. So I guess that we can say that I got into teaching when I realized how much I love learning. Even before I was in academia, I started by teaching small groups of math, and then for a few years during college, I was teaching people how to sail, which also involved navigation and other cool topics that were really fun to teach while I was studying in college. Then when I got into grad school, I focused on economics, I got lucky enough to be in a position in which I get to learn every day. And that's ever since. It's as I got out of grad school. I get to choose what to study, I get to teach what I study and what I chose to study, and I get to talk to smart students about interesting stuff. So at this point,
What is your current research about?
Much of my research currently is about the digital economy. These days, I really think a lot about digital privacy, what it even means, what is happening in practice, and what we should do about it, because we should. If I'm guessing, your listeners probably know that when we use services online, any services, Uber, Google, Amazon, Steam, you name it, some of our activity is converted into data. It's just recorded and it's converted into data. That could be our location, it could be our purchases, in some cases our text, sometimes even audio calls. A lot of this data is used for improving our online experiences. And that definitely changed the way we experience the web. But if the information falls in the wrong hands, it might be used for things we don't like. Now, there are the obvious ones like identity theft and all kind of online crimes that come to mind, but it can be more subtle. It could be firms using our online data for hiring decisions, for insurance or insurance companies using it to determine our life insurance premium, health insurance premium. So there could be all kind of uses that we might, as users, might not want to happen with our data. So I work with two wonderful colleagues. Andrea Galeori is in London Business School, and Ruslan Momot, who's in the University of Michigan. in the Ross Business School, we show that platforms that monetize the data directly, and the most extreme way of doing it is by selling the data, will collect more data, but also will invest more in protecting it. That relationship means that from a pure privacy perspective, it's not immediately clear whether a user will be better off with a platform that monetizes the data as opposed to a platform that monetizes usage. For example, by selling subscription or taking commission on transactions like Uber does. So that kind of was enlightening for us, and we found out that really what users would like, or what would be the best for users, are platforms that do some kind of combination of the things, of monetizing the data and monetizing over usage. We also study regulation, and we show that effective regulation of these companies, of platforms, must address both data collection and data protection. That's not currently the federal status of regulation of data privacy. At the federal level, the mandate for the FTC is to regulate data protection. They put a minimum on the level of data protection. If you don't protect enough, you violated the requirement. But there's no explicit requirement about data collection, apart from particular types of data that are singled out, like data about minors and stuff like that. So those are restricted. So that's something that really needs to be taken into account, and it's not quite covered yet, even by more strict regulation like the GDPR or the Chinese People Act or the California Act. Those are not quite covered yet there as well. Another market, if you'd like, that I think a lot about is the influencer economy, and that's in a separate way from privacy. Questions like how influencers balance sponsored and organic content. They need to make a living, but there is something about authenticity that followers are looking for. How the existing regulation in that case affect the content that we end up seeing. So we're showing that the regulation that mandates influencer to market with an ad labeled with ad or sponsored when they're actually posting sponsored content can affect the content that they end up posting, and that could have good and bad effects. So that's a question we've been thinking about a lot. We've also been thinking about why different marketing affiliates seem to converge on recommending the same products, which seems puzzling. I'm sure all of us experienced that we're looking for a new, in my case, it was a tennis racket, but it could be anything. And we look at different influencers, and somehow there are a few of them that just recommend the same things in a space that you know that there is a lot of heterogeneity and there are a lot of good products out there. So we kind of study that. But we can leave the details of that, I think, for another conversation. I enjoy the research, so I can talk about it for hours, but I think... Okay, I can add one thing that I think is kind of an interesting insight, is that influencers at the basic level, that came up both from a theoretical model and from conversations with influencers, they really are trying to balance between the sponsored and organic content, even when it's not marked. So if we look at pre-regulation, when they could post something that's sponsored without marking it, there was a sense in which the followers were able to get a sense that there is more sponsored content there. There are other ways of kind of showing that something is sponsored, or that brings out and that followers kind of recognize that there is something sponsored. An influencer balance that they want to post enough organic in relative terms, a higher fraction of organic, because that attracts the followers, but they need to make a living, so they need to post a little bit of sponsored. If they post too much sponsored, what comes out on the follower side is this lack of authenticity. If they post too little, and that might lower their followership, that might lower the number of likes on their whole portfolio, if you like, on all of their postings. So they really had to kind of not contaminate, if you would like, the authenticity that comes from the organic posts. Now, what the regulation does when you make them label sponsored content, that contamination goes away a little bit, because now the followers can see that a sponsored is sponsored, and they can give it different attention than they give to what's not sponsored. So that sounds good. And on a first pass, it is good. But what happens is that influencers also now react to that change in incentives. Because it does not contaminate their authenticities as much, they can take on more sponsored content. So we get two things with that regulation. We get that, yes, it's more transparent. As a follower, I can see what's sponsored and what not. But also now I have to scroll through a lot more sponsored content. And we show that theoretically, and there is some work that will show that empirically. And then it leads to the question, well, what does the regulation do to welfare at the bottom line? We have one model that shows that it can actually make follower worse off. But that's also an empirical question that's right now I'm working on with big data sets from Instagram.
Are you tired of developers and consulting firms taking advantage of your lack of technology knowledge? Narrow Lending is here to help with your software, mobile app, IT security, and game development needs. Give us a call at 888-503-8298. Get $500 in free advertising and professional advertising help when advertising today in our business virtual world and our virtual world affiliates. See how advertisers are getting a 200% return on investment on their advertising spend. Give us a call at 888-503-8298.
Have your own virtual business world, back-end software, and mobile app for free where you can offer advertising, business services such as a website builder, accounting software, email marketing, and much more. Offer games, virtual concerts, virtual shopping mall, arcade with over 20 games, and live events in your own virtual world exclusively created by Narrow Lending. If you are interested, email us at info@narrowlendinginc.com.
What is your favorite aspect of teaching?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of stuff that I like about teaching. I mean, one thing, I'll say two things, but one thing is short is just the energy. When you get into that classroom, there is a certain energy of learning and of intellectual discussion that is just, I mean, I enjoy it a lot. But the part that I really love about teaching is the part that is open-ended. Is that part that comes out of the interaction between the faculty and the students, or between the students themselves. In a sense, the way I think about it is that teaching is like going on a trip with a very incomplete map. You try to see all the tourist attractions where you're traveling, and those are on the map. There are certain things you have to cover, but you don't know what you'll come across in between. And if you keep your eyes open, which is really what I kind of try and encourage students to do while we're in the classroom, and if you're willing to explore, then you might find places that are new and that are interesting, and potentially more interesting than the touristic sites. And that's in teaching. Whenever I get to that new insight that I kind of come out of the classroom and I was like, I've been teaching this material for years and I haven't thought about that. That's just priceless. Oh, we learn a lot. Teaching, I don't know if to say, some people say it's the best way of learning. It's another way of learning. Yes. Yes, I'm very privileged to teach students that have shown interest in learning over time, and that's why they're there, and that they're curious, and that's a joy. I have at certain point in life taught students that are less privileged, not as a full-time position, but I did have the experience of that, and that is also really, really wonderful in the sense that people want to learn. Some people did not have the privilege and the opportunity to really be exposed to that open-ended learning that really kind of allows you to grow. And if you can take anyone that didn't experience that and really create a safe environment for them to learn, you find out that we're all good students. It's at least everybody that I met.
How can our listeners reach out to you?
So that's fun. That's easy. If you Google my name, then you get my name is rare enough that you get very quickly to my my webpage, and there I have all the contact infos. Yeah, well, for whoever stayed with us to the end, thank you for your attention. As I mentioned, I understand that that everybody have a limited time and a lot of interesting things out there. So I'm glad for whoever found this interesting. And thank you again for the invitation. It's been.
Are you tired of developers and consulting firms taking advantage of your lack of technology knowledge? Narrow Lending is here to help with your software, mobile app, IT security, and game development needs. Give us a call at 888-503-8298. Get $500 in free advertising and professional advertising help when advertising today in our business virtual world and our virtual world affiliates. See how advertisers are getting a 200% return on investment on their advertising spend. Give us a call at 888-503-8298.
Have your own virtual business world, backend software, and mobile app for free where you can offer advertising, business services such as a website builder, accounting software, email marketing, and much more. Offer games, virtual concerts, virtual shopping mall, arcade with over 20 games, and live events in your own virtual world exclusively created by Narrow Lending. If you are interested, email us at info@narrowlendinginc.com. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the show.